as you say, to just go, I'm shooting this out to everyone. But if you actually think of a face and try and like draw out who your person is, what they're interested in, where you find them, all of those things that make up your sort of target client, it lets you, as you say, kind of make the most of your money, because you're only talking to the select few who your product or your service is really for. So those are great tips. And if you don't have the time or you know, feel that that's sort of in your scope, then they can contact you to get some more help with it, which is ideal.
Exactly. And again, it's one of those things, you either really like it, like me, or it's just not your thing. And that's totally okay. That's absolutely fine. You know, it's not something that everyone wants to, because like I say, there's a lot. It's not a set and forget platform. You know, you're always tweaking and testing and looking at the data and seeing what, you know, something that works for one client might not work for another client. So yeah, and some people, either they just don't have the time or it's just not their thing. And that's absolutely okay.
I think this is the greatest thing about being a freelancer, or being, I guess, in a community of freelancers, is that if there's something that you maybe don't feel confident doing, don't have the time to learn, really don't like doing, there's always somebody who is the expert in that area. And I think for a lot of us, when we start out in our businesses, you know, we maybe don't have a massive budget to hire other people on, but as your business grows, like I've definitely learned that the hard way, trying to do everything myself and spending, you know, every waking minute of the day trying to learn new skills. And the thing is, I could try and learn Google Ads, for example, and I could put the time in, I could find the hours and try to learn it. But for me to even get to a basic level so that I'm able to do it will take so much effort. Whereas there's somebody like yourself who that is your expertise. You've done it for years and years. You spend your time learning to change with the platform as it changes. So yeah, I guess it's one of those things that there's really no replacement for hiring someone who that is what they do. And that's a lesson that I've really learned in running my own business. And I know people that are far more established than me as well really say that when they notice the most growth in their business is when they found other people to kind of fill in all the gaps in the areas that they maybe weren't doing enough of or weren't great at. So it's a tough one, I think, when you're starting out. But as your business grows, if you can start to outsource some of these things that are really important but not your strong points, it makes a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. But isn't it like strange? And like, you know, I absolutely get what you're saying. Like at the start, you're just like, I have to do everything. And you put so much pressure on yourself. And to be like, no, I need to learn this, and I need to control this, and I need to do this, and I need to handle all this. And like, sometimes I don't know what it is, but it's hard to take a step back and really just evaluate, like, what am I good at? And even just, I think it's sometimes like respecting your time enough to be like, actually, my value is this, and I can really, really shine and do the most if I'm focusing on XYZ, and then I get someone else to come in and help out with that other stuff. But I don't know, it's funny, I feel it more when I started this kind of like, I don't know, I was like, this is my baby, my business is my baby, and I need to make sure I'm doing this all myself, and I need to get a handle with things. It's so funny. I do think it takes you a while to get into that, to look at it in a different way. I definitely do.
Yeah, and I totally agree that it's not always just a budget thing. It is that control. It's like, this is my business. I've started it. I've built it. It's scary to relinquish any control in any area over to someone else. And I do think part of it too is like, it's really hard to be impartial with your own business. So I always think like, because I come from a sort of communications and a bit of marketing background, I found it really hard to say, actually, I could use some help with that for my own business, because I look at my business and go, I really like what I'm writing, or I really like that I'm sharing these photos and I'm attached to it. And it's really hard for me to be impartial and go, but actually, if I look at my insights, is that what other people like? Is that actually bringing me in business or helping me build my audience or connect with people? So sometimes, even if it's something that you like to do or you feel is a strong suit, having somebody who's just an impartial observer makes a big difference, because their heart isn't in it the same way that ours is.
Oh, absolutely. Like sometimes we are just a little bit too close to our businesses, and it's like, but it's nice. I think it's good to have that step back and have someone come in and be like, okay, this is working, this could be improved, here's how we can do that, here's the tools we can use. And it's really great, because at the end of the day, you know, we don't have endless time. I mean, we don't, like, there's only so much time in the day, and you know, the things that, you know, where things in my business which like just aren't my strengths, you know, it would take me so much time to actually like really do it and come to grips with it and do it well, that, you know, and don't get me wrong, I like knowing how all these things work, even things that I don't enjoy as much. I like knowing how it all works. I mean, I'm talking about like like tax and, you know, like finances and all that kind of stuff, you know, like I like kind of like feeling like I know what's going on, but at the same time I just so value someone who has that added bonus, because at the end of the day it's always, I mean, I'd be like, oh, I think it's da 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 da, you know, here's what I think would work, and then they sort of like, actually there's a way that's much better to do this, and it's hard not to, yeah, I have to step back, and it's hard not to take that, not personally, but to be a bit like, oh, okay, like that's fine, that's your, just remember, like, that's, you're the expert, that's your thing, that's what you do, that's totally fine, that makes sense, please make this better for me. That's where my head's at now with that stuff.
No, I totally agree. And what you said about the time and valuing your own time, I think that is bang on. That's exactly what it boils down to. So, you know, to use the example, like say that you hate cleaning your house, and that's like the one job that you absolutely hate doing. It takes however many 2 hours a week or whatever it is to like properly clean it. And you look at getting a cleaner, and the cleaner's 10 or 15 pounds an hour or whatever it is. And, you know, it's easy to just go, oh, that's an expense I don't need. But if it's something you really dislike doing and it's taking 2 hours away from, for example, your work time, is it worth it? How much do you value your time? What do you charge yourself out at per hour? If you start looking at all of these things, it's sometimes having those extra hours to put into maybe the big picture stuff with your business is so much more valuable, and it's really worth paying someone. And, you know, you said as well, it would take so much time and effort to get to a level where you could even do like some of these things that you maybe don't like to do, whether it's taxes or marketing or whatever part of your business that you don't want to do. If you hire someone else to do that, sure, that's a cost. But then if you've got those hours to put into bringing in new clients or customers or big picture stuff, you're going to get that back tenfold over time.
Oh, absolutely. And hey, if they are going to do a better job than me, and probably quicker than I can do it, then yeah, like, go for it. Do it. Help me, please.
Well, and what's interesting, I guess, about this kind of discussion of like admitting the things that we maybe aren't so good at, for most of us, I think it's actually easier to admit the things that we aren't good at than the things that we are. And it boils into this whole, like, I know you and I have chatted a little bit about this before, this whole imposter syndrome thing, where it's like, you know, it's easy to say, okay, I'm not very good at numbers. Like for me, I'm not very good at numbers. I'm not very good at technology and staying up to date with all of that. But then I'm pretty quick to diminish my own experience or skill set with the things that I am good with. I don't know if you find that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's something that I've had like through, like, it comes and goes like throughout my career, depending on what's going on, the bigger picture. But no, definitely. I think it's interesting. I think it's, you know, holding yourself to these like really high, just unattainable standards, but also just absolutely like minimizing the positive things. You know, like someone's like, oh, you've got good results. And you're like, oh, well, that just happened to be a good month. That just happened. And it's like, no, these things don't just happen. Like, you put work into it, you put time into it, you know, you made that happen. But it's so, I almost feel like I don't know, it's very strange, but we have this kind of guilt around like accepting our positives and accepting like the good things. And at the end of the day, it's not even like, say, like talking about bragging or being like, you know, it's just recognizing what you've done and what you've put into it. But no, absolutely, I think minimizing positives is such a massive thing, and it comes a lot of time, because it's so funny, you don't do it with other people. You'll look at someone else and you're like, you did so well, you nailed that, you put so much time and effort into it, and you are an absolute queen, and you nailed that. And then it's like the situation can be reversed, and you're like, oh no, like no, I barely did a thing. You know, it's so interesting. It really interests me. It's very interesting. It's such a strange, but also it's been around for so long. Like, I mean, it's so funny when we spoke about it. It wasn't that we were like, it was almost like when we were like, oh yeah, you know, we get it. It was almost like, yes, like expected now that because everyone seems to like go through it at some point.
I know. And I think what's really weird about it, and you just said the same has happened for you, is it comes and goes. So when I felt like that, sort of when I was really starting out in my business and building up a skill set, at first I was like, look at these people that are way further ahead than me. Like, I'm never going to be that good. And maybe I'm not even good enough to be starting a business. You know, you get that at the beginning and you sort of expect that. But then I guess I always thought it would just go away at some point. Like there would come a point where I'd be like, right, I'm feeling pretty good about what I'm doing. And I do have days like that where I'm feeling a little bit more confident and really proud of what I've accomplished. And then I have the days where I still feel like I'm that kind of scared, nervous person starting out. And I don't know why that comes and goes. Maybe you're right, it's bigger picture, it's everything else that's happening around you. But I think it is safe to say every single business owner that I've ever spoken to or worked with, or who's worked for me or anything like that, I think we're all in the same boat. Everybody's experienced that at some point and continues to have those feelings once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this podcast, I actually looked up when this first apparently was recognised.
Oh, brilliant.
Apparently, this is kind of something that's I've always heard about it. You know, I've heard about it so many times. We talk about it so many times. We all seem to still have it. We're all very aware of it. And I looked it up, and apparently, the first time it was spoken about was back in 1978.
Wow.
That is how, and do you know? And now, you know, there's an industry built up around it. Getting rid of it, recognise it. There's books, there's websites. I mean, when I was like Googling, just out of, you know, curiosity to find out how long this has been, well, not how long it's been going for, but when it was recognised, how long we've been aware of it, you know, there was like, buy this book to get rid of it, coaching sessions, there was, you know, help guides, websites dedicated to it. You know, there's an industry around trying to solve this, and we are so aware of it, but yet it's so prevalent still. And I just think that is so interesting. And what I think, you know, there was you know, it's kind of been in my mind recently, because there was that article that did the rounds on LinkedIn talking about, you know, due to the pandemic, like a quarter of C-level, quarter of people in the C-level are now saying that they are suffering from it because there's so much more uncertainty and we don't instinctively know how to navigate this. We're trying, but, you know, there's no real right answers because it's something we're so not used to. It's just so, I find it very interesting that we're all so aware of it. It's been going on for so long, but we all seem to still have it.
Yeah, and what's neat about that is I think a lot of the time that I think there's so many good things about social media, so I'm not here to bash social media, but I often think that imposter syndrome has been sort of a product of social media and online presence, because everybody's showing their best life and their highlight reel online, and it's really hard when you're seeing that constantly every day to not fall into that trap of comparing yourself. And then I think that's where a lot of it lies. But obviously there was no social media in the 70s, so it must be something to do with human nature or self-confidence, or who knows, any number of things. That's super interesting. Thanks for looking that up.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I think that's the thing. I think it's we haven't really solved it, but we still have it because I think it's such a big issue. And I think with social media, I definitely think social media is interesting. I think it's a double-edged sword because I think it has kind of exasperated it in some way, but in other ways I can absolutely see why it might help, because, you know, on one side you're looking at all these people just showing a polished version of their life, even when it's, you know, behind the scenes, authentic. There's some thoughts gone into it, you know. It's not curated. Yeah, still curated. You know, even when actually it's still curated, and I think it's you know, we're going in here and we're trying to, you know, trying to work out where we are, you know, how well we're doing. We're looking for comparisons because I think especially women, we're always trying to read the room and we're trying to, you know, work out where we are. And then all we have, but the room now is social media, and the room is this very curated image, and, you know, you see things and you kind of fall into the trap being like, oh, it's, you know, this is authentic and this is what they're doing and they're just showing us inside their life. And sometimes it's hard to keep reminding yourself, no, it's actually, this is still planned, this is still curated, and even just look at yourself and, well, what am I doing, what am I putting out there? And, you know, putting and, you know, kind of reminding you, keeping yourself in check and reminding yourself, you know, what you're doing, other people are doing. But then at the same time, I think imposter syndrome, especially in the workplace, maybe not so much, you know, as a freelancer now. But, you know, it also comes from, I think, a lack of diversity, especially at the very high senior levels. I mean, this is just anecdotal, but what I found is when I've worked at companies, they've maybe have, you know, diversity